what I want to explain today is just another crazy idea of my own, and this is a work in progress. So I have been thinking in some aspects of this idea since my meeting with Branko van Oppen in Coimbra last Celtic conference in classics last year in Portugal, and there we have some conversations and discussions and beers, which helps to improve conversations and discussions about classics, and many good ideas arise. And I have been thinking about these ideas during like a year, and now I put some order in at least a few of them. So again, this is not ended, and if you have comments or critics or whatever to say, they are also really welcome. So now let's do it. And let me share my slides with this seminar about Argead Beastmasters. Okay, this is a well-known feature in the ancient world, the relationship between animals and the mankind, not only in the social or economic aspects, but also in the cultural, or specifically in what it means for us today, in the beliefs and the cults and the religion. You all already know about histories and episodes and fragments in our sources about animals which are used by the gods as a vehicle of their will, in order to be shown to mankind. Nevertheless, I guess in the Argead dynasty we have a quite strange situation. But first, let me begin to introduce the topic. Okay. As I said, you already know about myths of animals driving people to their destiny. Like, for example, Aeneas and the pig, or the she-wolf of Romulus and Remus. Even I have been thinking about other kind of relationships around the beliefs and the cults, like the Trojan War, which is not actually a real, like the Trojan horse, which is not actually a horse, a real horse, but also the Trojan horse is linked with the belief of the Trojan people about the horses and of Poseidon as God related to the horses, and how Odysseus uses this belief in order to build a machine, a war machine, to enter the city. We can talk about this like during a year. We have too many episodes to be quoted there. Even more, if we talk about power, this kind of exhibitions, this kind of proofs of the will of the divine about some people, some important people, the rulers actually, used to be showed by our sources as a link between what the gods want to be done and the men who has been chosen by the gods to rule. Again, I don't want to develop so much this topic, because this is a common idea, and you can find it anywhere. If we go back to the Macedonian court, which is the Argead court, the Macedonian court, you know, the kingdom of Macedon, which has been founded by the Heraclids, the brothers of Perdiccas, and the whole story from Herodotus. I'm not interested in this topic today, but as you know, the Macedonian kingdom lived with the Greek polis until Philip II and Alexander the Great, who conquered in some way. This is again not the place to discuss this, and ruled over the Greeks, both the Greeks in the mainland and the Greeks in Asia Minor. We find in the Macedonian court, in the Argead court, some evidences of a close relationship between the kings and the animals, or even the court and the elite and the animals. What you can see now is the two of the mosaics of Pella. Again, the first slide, that of Dionysus, like riding a panther, is from there. This is quite evident that we have a relationship between animals and power. In these two mosaics, in these two pictures, you can see just a concrete feature of this relationship, that is the hunting. And this is not a far hunting. This is what we see is the royal hunt, and we know about a lot of episodes of hunting in the history of the royal of the Macedonian kings. Even we know about conspiracies in the context of hunting. But this is not, again, my topic for today. Nevertheless, hunting, and actually the mastering of animals, is a very important question in what uses to be the day life in the Macedonian court. At least we know by Athenaeus, who quotes Egesander, and maybe this is an idea recorded also by Aristotle, that in Macedonia it was not customary for anyone to recline at dinner unless he had spared a wild boar without using a hunting net. So it seems like a ritual of gaining adultness to hunt a boar, a wild boar. And we can imagine the organization of official huntings for that. Even more, until then, they mostly sit in. Cassander, who was the king, therefore, at the age of 35, continued to sit at meals with his father, being unable to accomplish the feat, though he was brave and a good hunter. We are facing here customary law, a usual tradition in the way Macedonians at court linked have a relationship with not only with animals or even with hunting, but in what I can feel of the mastering of nature. Okay, there are more things to discuss in this paragraph, and it seems quite strange to me that Cassander must be seated with his father, who was not actually a real king. But let's pass over that and go ahead. If we take a look at the one of the myths of founding the kingdom of Macedonia, we find quite a strange character named Caranos. Justin, in the epitome of the Rera Gestarum by Pompeius Strogus, talks about an episode of this mythical founder of the Macedonian kingdom, which is Caranos, and I quote, Caranos, accompanied by a great multitude of Greeks, having been directed by an oracle to seek a settlement in Macedonia, having come into Emathia and followed a flock of goats that were fleeing from a tempest like that outside, possessed himself in the city of Edessa before the inhabitants, on account of the thickness of the rain and mist, were aware of his approach. Interesting. There is like a kind of rain and mist. I don't realize about this, but we have a common situation in another text. And it's like difficult to see. Okay, we were aware of his approach and being reminded of the oracle by which he had been ordered to seek a kingdom with goats in his guides. He made the city the seat of his government, and afterwards religiously took care, withsoever he led his troops, to keep the same goals before his standards, that he might have those animals as leaders in the enterprises which he had as guides of the side of his kingdom. He changed the name of the city in commemoration of the good fortune from Edessa to Aegea, and called the inhabitants Aegetai. Okay, it's fine. This is the usual omen of founding or conquering a landscape. We know a lot of episodes like that, but what is different here is the idea that the animals are the guides. Okay, and some of these ideas appear again. So let me see. Okay. If we go, what is very, very difficult in trying to analyze the history of the Macedonian kingdom is that we know nothing. We know almost nothing about the Macedonians beyond their relationship with the Greek polis in the Peloponnesian War or in the Persian War. But we know nothing about the day life, the traditions, and what is more important in what I try to explain today, it's about their religion. We know about the interpretation, the Interpretatio Graeca, the Greeks made about the religion of the Macedonians, but we also know the Macedonian religion is different in some way, in some aspects to the Greek religion, but we don't know what kind of difference, and we know the details of this difference. For example, we know names about the gods or other kind of divine forces, but we don't know what they were or what kind of force they have. So we are like blind in this approach. We know nothing about the Macedonians until Alexander and Philip, specifically after Alexander. Even more, Alexander is the ancient person we know so much better in their usual practices concerning religion. We know about what he tries to sacrifice. We know what kind of sacrifices. We know their beliefs. We know a lot. And this is an idea Friedrich Meyer stated so much in his classic masterpiece about the topic. But now I'm not interested in the whole Alexander, but just in the trip he made when he entered Egypt from the coast to Siwa, in order to visit the Temple of Ammon, and after that he found Alexandria. Okay, let's go for the texts. Diodorus of Sicily says so, and I quote, when he came to the desert and waterless part, he took on board and began to cross a country covered with an infinite expanse of sand. In 4 days, their water had given out, and they suffered from fearful thirst. All fell into despair when suddenly a great storm of rain burst from the heavens. Again, the rain and the mist is strange. I don't realize that before. Ending the shortage of water in a way which cannot be foreseen, and which therefore seemed to those so unexpectedly rescued to have been due to the action of divine providence. Okay, this is what we say. Every great king has a god or the help of the gods in the back. They refer their containers from a hollow in the ground, and again with a 4 days supply, and in case matched for 4 days, and came into the desert at one point when the road could not be traced because of the sand dunes. The guide pointed out to the king that crows caving on the right were calling their attention to the route which led to the temple. They are now guided by crows, not by goats like Caranos, but again by animals. Okay, Alexander took this for an omen, of course, and thinking that the god was pleased by the visit, pushed on with speed. Okay, this is a classical episode in Alexander's life. Let's see what the other sources on Alexander says. 4 days were spent, Curtius says, 4 days were spent in traversing this vastness, and now they were not far from the abode of the oracle, when a great flock of ravens met the army. Flying at a moderate speed before the van, they now lighted on the ground when the line advanced more slowly, now raised themselves on their wings, as if acting as guides and showing the way. The three texts, that of Caranos, that of Diodorus, and again that of Curtius, from different episodes, talks to us about the guide of the animals, not just the presence or the omens or a good advice. This is the guide of the animals to the king. Okay, and then they arrive at the boat consecrated to the god. Okay, fine. Plutarch in the 2nd century after Christ writes in his life of Alexander his own version of the episode. Confused, and we don't know why they became confused, but we know about the rain and the desert and the whole story. And the travelers were separated and wandered about in ignorance on the route. Ravens appeared and assumed direction to their march, flying swiftly on the front of them when they followed, and waiting for them when they marched slowly and lagged behind. This is not the usual idea that a hero has to follow an animal, or the usual omen during a battle about goodwill of the gods for victory. we are in front of everything different, in my opinion. Okay, let's go with Arian, who uses to be considered the main source for Alexander, although Bosworth and many other people were very cautious with the use. The route is desert and most of it is sand and destitute of water, but there was a copious supply of rain for Alexander, a thing which was attributed to the influence of the deity, as was also the following occurrence. Whenever a south wind blows in that district, it heaps up the sand upon the road far and wide, rendering the tracks to the road invisible, so that it is impossible to discover where one ought to direct one's course in the sand, just as if one were at sea. For there are no landmarks along the road, neither mountains anywhere, not tree, not permanent hill standing erect, by which travelers might be able to form a conjecture of the right course as sailors do by the stars. Consequently, Alexander's army lost the way, and even the guides were in doubt about the course to take. Ptolemy, son of Lagos, which is the source Arian uses to write his own history of Alexander, Ptolemy, the colleague of the commander under Alexander's rule, who was later the founder of the Ptolemies ruling Egypt, says that two serpents went in front of the army uttering a voice, and Alexander ordered the guys to follow them, trusting in the divine portent. He says too that they showed the way to the oracle and back again. But Aristobulus, whose account is generally admitted as correct, says that two ravens flew in front of the army, and that this acted as Alexander's guide. These two possibilities, snakes, crows, has been discussed before, and the usual conclusion is that Ptolemy prefers serpents because the serpent is like the national, the Egyptian national animal. And when he wrote, he was the king of Egypt. But let's keep here the version by Aristobulus, the other source of Arian, and let's keep also the common version of the ravens guiding Alexander's army. What we have to keep in mind here first is the similarity of what is happening in the case of Caranos, guided by goats, and in the case of Alexander, guided by crows or ravens. More important is the fact that Caranos conquered the land and refound a city. Alexander, he did not really conquer Egypt. Okay, we can discuss about this, but this is not the time to do so. He not go with an army in order to fight people in Egypt. But when he entered Egypt, he directly goes to Siwa. There he is recognized, he is guided by the crows, he arrives to Siwa, and then he's recognized as a king, a true king of Egypt. And after that, what he did, he found the city of Alexandria. Again, we are in the same scheme. Caranos, animals guide the army of Caranos, conquering the land, new city. Alexander the same. He conquers Egypt. Here he's guided by animals. He founds a city. We are in a clear scheme of imitation, at least. But if we go beyond the classical Argeads and we try to seek this behavior among the Hellenistic kings, especially the diadoques, the first generation, the commanders from Alexander's army. This is one of my favorite texts in the whole corpus of sources about the Hellenistic world. I really love it. I guess there was like 13 years since I read it by the first time, and I have been rereading it and trying to understand it from a long time. So I hope you also enjoy it so much, because it's very, very strange. This text, this source is from John Malalas, from the 4th century after Christ, and he's a very hostile author against the pagans. So his view about the Hellenistic kings is very hard. But let's go. Seleucus Nicator, who wanted to establish some eminent cities, began to found cities from the coast of Syria. On the 23rd day of the month of Santicus, the Santica is also a special party in Macedonian calendar. Seleucus went up to Mount Cassius in order to sacrifice to Zeus Cassius. After completing the sacrifice and cutting the meat, Seleucus prayed to be shown where to found a city. Suddenly, an eagle snatched the meat from the sacrifice and took it away from the old city. Following behind with his augurs, Seleucus found that the meat had been dropped near the sea below the old city, in the place called by the trading station of Pieria. Immediately, he constructed walls and built the foundation of a city, which he called Seleucia, after this own name. Okay, the text is really long. I shorted just in the points I want to focus my attention. This is a quite normal feature by a ruler and a sacrifice in order to found a city. This is fine, but it's interesting to us that this is not just like an omen. The eagle guides Seleucus to the foundation. This can be just an omen. We know a lot of them like that, but quite strange the fact that the omen repeats 4 times in the same way in order to found cities. So again, Seleucus came to the city of Antigonia, which had been founded by Antigonus Poliorcetes. Malalas knows almost nothing about the Hellenistic kings, as you can see. There, Seleucus performed a sacrifice to Zeus on the altar erected by Antigonus. He cut the meat and prayed by the priest Amphion for a sign to be given, to show whether he should settle the city of Antigonia and change its name, or he should abandon the city and found another name somewhere else. He's praying for a guide to the gods, and the guide is an animal. Suddenly, a great eagle came down from the sky and snatched the meat of the offering from the fire of the altar. On the altar, the eagle flew off by Mount Silpius, where Seleucus found it and found the consecrated meat, with the eagle poised over it. So he made the foundation of a new city. Then we go with 2 new cities by Seleucus in the Seleucid Syria. But there are 2 more. Seleucus Nicator founded another city by the coast of Syria, which he called Laodicea. As was his custom, he performed a sacrifice to Zeus and asked where he should found the city. Again, an eagle came down and seized the meat from the sacrifice. While Seleucus was pursuing the eagle, he was confronted by a huge boar, which came out of a reed bed. Seleucus killed the boar, which is strange As far as Cassander, his own enemy, cannot do that. Kill the boar with the spear which he held. After killing the boar, he dragged its body along and used its blood to mark out the walls of the city, paying no further attention to the eagle. Thus, Seleucus founded the city over the blood of the boar. He sacrificed a pure maiden. Okay, this is an invasion from Malalas. We don't need to read it. And let's go for the last city. Seleucus Nicator founded another great city in Syria, where there has previously been a village called Pharnace, and he named it after his daughter Apama. This is Apame. He sacrificed a bull and a goat, and again an eagle came down and sighted the head of the bull and the goat, and Seleucus marked out the walls of the city with the blood of the animals. This is not actually an omen, not just a concrete effect by the gods in an animal to show people what the gods want to be done. We are in front of a repetition of a feature, and in the whole story, the eagle is guiding Seleucus to the city to be founded. In the same way, we can see in the episodes of Caranos and the episodes of Alexander and the founding of Alexandria. So here's my point, which you can see it before. Mastering animals is a common feature in the relationship between the gods and the kings, in the main center of the relationship between myths and politics. But we are, in the case of the Argead kingdom, beyond this common feature in ancient omens. Are we dealing here with the idea that the king has to show the ability to master animals? Has to be guided by animals in order to make an explicit fact that he is the real master of the landscape? Again, Curtius is very helpful, and I quote, "Then if you defeat the whole human race," and we can see here, if you conquer the land, the landscape, if you conquer a territory, a kingdom, you will be ready to make wars on woods, on snow, on rivers, on wild animals. Okay, I want to remember here that the key topic in the base of the idea of the Argeads for the right to rule a landscape is the fact that they rule not by the force but by the law. This is a text, an idea in Aristotle, but also they are the masters of the land because they conquer. Okay, but this conquest cannot be done just by the force of the armies or by the weapons. The real conquest is the mastering of everything contained in this landscape. Actually, goods, minerals, and of course, animals. But animals are not so easy to be mastered as the goods. You can simply explode the resources, the natural resources, but the animals are called to show how they are mastered by the real kings. So I guess mastering animals is one main way for the Argeads to show their own right to rule a landscape. And this is it. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed, and I wait for your comments. Thank you.